In episode 1 of this series, we talked about why God designed the sexual impulse to be so strong in the first place, so dangerously strong even. We discovered that the sexual impulse needs to be this powerful, even to the point that it can overwhelm our rational faculties, because its function is to draw men and women to each other. That's its primary function, to compel men and women to go looking for each other and to start relationships. And there are all these barriers and risks and fears that would otherwise stop that from happening. The man could be rejected, his self-confidence could be destroyed, he can make a fool of himself, he could be embarrassed, the conversation might be incredibly awkward, the woman for her part could be attacked or even raped if she accepts the date. Marriage itself is fraught with difficulties and risks. So we identified that the sexual impulse simply needs to be strong enough to steamroller over all of those concerns, all of these barriers. It needs to be strong enough to compel us, to motivate us, to give us the energy to go after this very difficult but ultimately rewarding goal of relationship, marriage and family. Imagine this healthy scenario then. This is what should be happening. A man is starting to feel a sexual build-up and his rev counter is moving into the red zone. Naturally then, this means that his thoughts are starting to turn towards women. And that's good, remember, that's what it was designed to do. The sexual impulse was designed to push him towards a relationship with a woman. Now the sexual charge that's building up inside him will now help him to override all of the difficulties that would stand in the way. It will motivate him to do many hard things in order to attain that woman. And I don't just mean in the initial approach either. A lot of what we do in our daily lives is subconsciously motivated by the sexual impulse. Indeed, I actually don't think we fully realize just how much of what we do on a day-to-day basis is subconsciously motivated by the sexual charge. And I mean that in a good way too. The desire to be in a relationship with the opposite sex is at the root of much chivalry, courage, character development, healthy habits, and spent energy in the world. For example, let's illustrate this. Long before the man even sees a woman that he likes, he'll think to himself, what do I need to do in order to get one? Well, he needs to look attractive. So he'll start going to the gym perhaps. He'll start working out so that he looks good. He'll start eating in a disciplined way to keep his body trim too. He'll make the effort to dress nicely and to groom himself in an appealing way. He'll realize that he needs to socialize to actually meet a woman, so he'll make the effort to improve his social skills, to become more funny and witty, charming and polite as a conversationalist. He'll work hard to get a good job so that he has the financial means to be a desirable partner for a woman. And these are all healthy outcomes for his life. In his desire to become attractive to women, he's becoming healthier, more charming, more financially secure. He may not realize it, then again he may realize it, but the sexual impulse, the desire for a woman, for a relationship, is helping to drive all of these positive outcomes. The desire for a woman is causing character development. And of course, it doesn't stop there. When he does see a woman that he finds attractive, the sexual impulse will now push him to actually approach her. He'll be terrified, but the sexual impulse will compel him. He'll summon the courage to go talk to her and he'll ask her out on a date. If she accepts that date, and if he's godly, then that's just the beginning of the character development. Because now he'll need to work at that relationship. He'll need to perform acts of self-sacrifice, face and overcome his flaws, battle his insecurities, open up on his vulnerabilities. He'll need to continue doing all the hard things he did before they met too. Exercising, eating well, working hard, socializing. And then ultimately, he'll need to summon the courage to propose, committing his life to this woman until death they do part. The desire to be in a relationship will compel him towards discipline, sacrifice, and commitment. Only then, after all that discipline, sacrifice, commitment, character development, will the sexual impulse finally find its fulfillment. It will have been a long, difficult journey. It will have required a lot from him. And since he's now bound for life, it's going to require a whole lot more in the years ahead. And yet look at all these ideal outcomes. Look at what the process has brought to him. He's now healthier, he looks better, smells better, is wittier, more charming, better in polite company. He's improved his financial situation. He's better at loving and being loved than he was at the start. The process of pursuing a woman has refined him and made him a better version of himself. Best of all, he now has that friend and life partner that he's always craved. He has his wife. The process I'm talking about here is something called sexual transmutation. Remember that phrase, we're going to use it a lot in the second half of this series. It means the changing or transferring of sexual energy into other forms of expression instead of physical expression. Author Napoleon Hill once said, "Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force may be used for powerful creativity in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling." The point is that when you channel sexual energy in the right way, in an indirect way, you're not only more likely to get the girl, but in the process of doing what's necessary to get that girl, you're likely to get a whole lot of other life benefits besides. The process of pursuing a girl will compel you to do many difficult character developing things that you otherwise wouldn't do. You'll be refined by that process. You'll become a healthier, more productive, more fulfilled version of yourself. Now let's put that ideal scenario to the side for a moment and imagine another one. Imagine the man is starting to feel a sexual build-up and his rev counter is moving into the red zone. Again, naturally his thoughts start turning towards women, and this is good, we're still on the right track here. Except this time, he suddenly realizes that there's a much easier way to achieve sexual fulfillment. He doesn't need to do any of that difficult stuff at all. None of it. He doesn't need to work out, eat well, groom, work hard, socialize, take risks, be disciplined, creative, chivalrous, self-sacrificial, commit to marriage, or anything else. If he wants to find fulfillment for his sexual energy, there's a much easier way. All he has to do is simply seclude himself in his bedroom and masturbate. This option is so much easier, so much easier. It's a quick fix, which is why it's so appealing. But of course, if he chooses that easy option and satisfies his need with masturbation, then isn't it clear that he's short-circuiting and frustrating the very purpose for which the sexual impulse exists? Rather than pushing the man towards relationship, which is what it was designed to do, this short circuit will keep him isolated and alone in his bedroom, rather than driving him towards this life of self-discipline, character development, self-sacrifice, fulfilling relationship. Masturbation is thwarting all that. It's taking away the sexual energy that he would otherwise be channeling into those pursuits. Sexual transmutation. It's taking away his motivation to do these things. Once he masturbates and the sexual charge drops, he's not as compelled to go after a woman. He's not as compelled to overcome his fears and be brave or to take risks for one. So clearly, in this respect, he's exchanging something healthy for something less healthy. I think instinctively we tend to associate masturbation with laziness and loneliness. And there's a sense in which it could contribute towards those outcomes. Throughout this series, we've emphasised that masturbation reduces the strength of the sexual impulse, and we have until now always considered that to be a good thing. We've considered that we need to keep ourselves out of the red zone as much as possible, because otherwise we're more likely to stumble into the worst case scenario of porneia. We're more likely to burn with lust and to sin. However, now we have to consider something else. That masturbation could be an activity that keeps us from the best case scenario. Indeed, this is where the argument for abstinence really begins. We have to consider that reducing the sexual charge through masturbation may not be desirable at all if it drains a person of the energy that they would otherwise be putting into sexual transmutation and character development. If coming out of the red zone means that a man is no longer motivated to do all the difficult things necessary to refine his character and attract a real woman, then he's obviously damaging his long-term prospects of relationship and marriage, which is, after all, God's best for us in this area of life.